I was shown a vision of me speaking to thousands of people, but I had no idea what I was speaking about. It was like, this is your future. You have to go back. Basically, they wanted me to know that I would be helping out a lot of people. They weren't forcing me. They said, you don't have to go back, but this is the time now to make that choice.
Oh, wow.
And welcome to the Acid for Squares podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Dahl.
And I'm Cody Blue. And if you like what we're doing, please like, subscribe, rate, share with your mother. We are a heavily show and we appreciate all the help you can give us. And on today's episode, we have our dear friend, Anita Moorjani, who is an international speaker and a best-selling author. Anita, thank you for being on, sister. We appreciate you.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. This is exciting.
This is very exciting. It's been a long time coming.
We're really excited.
It has.
We know you because of our sister, Abby Judd Snyder, our literal sister, and who you work with.
We're working together for years.
Yes. Thank you, Abby, for making this happen. We appreciate it.
Can I just set the stage really quick? So the first time that we met Anita was at this like outdoor market with Abby, and we were like, oh, you know, this like the speaker and all this stuff. We'd heard all these things, and then we met Anita, and we were like, oh my God. She's very childlike. Yeah. And this is the thing that we always say that's how you know you're a real one.
The spiritualist?
Literally, this thing right here.
Oh, you have it.
I have it. Anita found this. I tried to get the batteries to work. It wouldn't work. But this thing goes like this. And she was like, do you think I should get it? I feel like I need it. And I was like, well, I kind of want one too. She did like a poll online and all that stuff. And I'm like, if Anita's getting this little monster pot guy, then I was like, she's a real one.
Those raddest jockeys. It's true. Because, you know, there's so many people in this space, whatever the space is, I don't know, spiritual teachers or whatever it is. And, you know, we're always like, you know, well, how do you know who's fake and who's real? And we feel like if people come in with an ego and they're so serious, because we're like, seriousness is ego. And you always just have such a lightness and a play and like a carefree spirit.
And Danny are just like, I feel like you're skipping around everywhere. It's so cool.
So we've loved you from Jump Street. That's what we're trying to say.
Oh, wow. Thank you. That's so heartening to hear that. Because remember, I've been dead and back. So I
can't. Remember, I've died. And on that note,
I mean, how are you supposed to take life seriously if you know what happens after you die?
Right.
That's true, because that's the number one fear for people is passing.
Wait, so this is does that mean that this carefree exuberance is something that came through more after you died and you didn't necessarily maybe have it as much beforehand?
It definitely came through much more after I died. Whoa. When I realized we're not supposed to take life so seriously, particularly spirituality. So here's another thing that blows people away when I tell them this, because people know me for my near-death story, which I will share. And people assume that an experience like that will make me more spiritual. I actually tell people I was extremely spiritual before I died. And it was after that I realized, wait a minute, I don't need to be spiritual. We're all spiritual. We're born spirit. We can play. We just have to be ourselves, because who we are is spirit. We just have to be authentically who we are. And being yourself is the same as being spiritual, because you are a spirit. And in fact, death freed me from trying to be more spiritual all the time.
Right. Wow. You don't have to be a human. You just are a human. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to be spiritual. This is a spiritual experience, right? That's fascinating. I didn't know that.
So Anita, could you kind of walk our audience through where you were at before this happened, where you maybe were taking life a little too seriously, or where you were at that time?
So before this happened, I would say that I was a people pleaser. I lived a life that was based on fear, and it's a lot of different types of fear, like fear of failing, fear of disapproval, fear of being shamed. I had a very strict dad. I grew up in a culture where men were favored over women. So just for being born a girl, I was less favored, and I was disapproved by my dad just because I wasn't a boy.
You felt that as a child?
Oh, yes, I did. I did. I felt it as a child growing up.
Oh, that's so sad.
I know.
Poor little Anita. Oh my gosh.
And you don't even realize it because this is what you're growing up in. This is your environment. This is what you're marinated in. Where I was always trying to win his approval, not realizing that I'm never going to get it. Because the fact that I'm a girl makes me a burden. I know that was part of his cultural conditioning. I mean, I even discovered that when I was born, he didn't come to the hospital right away when he heard, oh, it's a girl, and it was like not a big deal. That sort of thing. So I grew up in this environment where I was indoctrinated to believe that women were inferior to men, and our worth was measured by how valuable we were to the men in our community. And so you learn to be subservient to men, and you learn to toe the line, and you kind of feel that your survival depends on being subservient and being a people pleaser. And that's how I grew up. The other thing also was that I was always trying to be more spiritual. I was working at meditating more, praying more, creating good karma. I always worried, because my parents are Hindu, I always worried about the afterlife, about karma. Oh, and also when I was growing up, I was being groomed for an arranged marriage.
Oh,
wow.
Yes, where you're told that housework skills are the most important thing. In other words, the woman has to take care of the home, learn to cook and clean. And I told my parents, but I want to work. I want to be independent. I want to make my own money because I want to travel the world. I have dreams. And they said, oh, no, you can't dream those dreams now. It would depend on your husband. So,
oh my, did they already have somebody picked out that they wanted you to marry?
They hadn't picked the person out, but they wanted to pick somebody out, at that time when I was being groomed that way. And I will say it was not so much my mom, because my mom had been through it when she was young. She didn't want the same for me. It was my dad, and it was the community we were in, and it was the pressure of the community.
It's so interesting how culture can sometimes be very toxic. Yes. And not really think about people and progressing forward. And, as the time changes, the culture should change as well.
Exactly.
So that's what seems like you were going wait a second, this doesn't seem right. I have a lot of things that I want to do.
Exactly. And I could tell that my mom wanted to support me, but she was repressed herself as a woman. And she was under pressure from my dad and even other family members, her siblings, his siblings. So a lot of people, a lot of our relatives, my aunts, uncles, grandparents, all accused my mom, including my dad. They would accuse my mom of spoiling me, of taking my side. So anyway, finally, I did give in to an arranged marriage, but I only got engaged. I hadn't got married yet. And while I was engaged, I realized what I was in for, because I was being told that I'm going to have to learn to cook better, clean house better, take care of my husband and his parents. And so I wanted to check with my future husband-to-be whether I was going to be able to either go back to school for higher education or to work. And I was told, no, I would not be allowed to do that because it makes you too independent and too free. I know.
I don't like that.
I know. So 3 days before the wedding, I ran away.
Good for you.
Get you out of there. Yeah, Anita.
Good for you.
Yeah. And what happened was that I ended up being completely ostracized by the community, but my mom stuck by me. I told her before I was going to run away, and she cheered me on, and people don't know that. And
good mama.
She was so good, but the entire community ostracized me. They ostracized my mom. They accused her of spoiling me, of not of not disciplining me and slapping me and making me show up at the temple for the wedding. And so,
oh my gosh.
yeah, so my mom dealt with it. She actually told me, you don't worry about it. I'll take the hit for it.
Oh my God, what an amazing mom. She knew what was coming and she's like, it doesn't matter for my girl, I got you.
She's been through it.
Oh,
yes.
It's like breaking like ancestral curses, you know what I mean?
It's exactly that. It's exactly that. And so I dealt with being ostracized by the community. And then I was free to actually go and do my thing, to go and work and travel, because I was told that no Indian man was going to marry me after what I'd done. And no parents of young Indian men were going to let their sons near me. So,
damn,
I know.
It's dark.
So I told my parents, I said, don't worry, I'm not going to marry an Indian man. I'm going to go find my own husband. It's not going to be arranged. And, but what ended up happening was I ended up marrying an Indian man, but I met him and we have the same values. It was incredible because his parents wanted to arrange a marriage for him. And he said, no way, I'm going to find my own wife. And so
Danny's such a sweetheart.
Yeah.
Oh, he's so lovely. And both of us, both of us are against all these old Indian values. So he's just the most amazing husband. But a few years after we were married, I got diagnosed with cancer. It was lymphoma, which is cancer of the lymph glands. Mm-hmm. And over a period of 4 years, the cancer spread. Now, again, the question you asked me was, what type of person was I? I grew up socialized to be a people pleaser, to be someone who was subservient, someone who was in service of everyone else except me, who took care of everyone else. That was just the kind of person that I was socialized to be. And I was ingrained with beliefs like it's selfish to take care of yourself or to do anything for yourself. So I would neglect all my own needs and all my own desires. So even when I got sick, even when I was getting cancer and I was deteriorating, when people wanted to help me, I would say, no, don't go out of your way. It's okay. It's okay. I didn't want to trouble them. And my health deteriorated to the point where my body stopped absorbing nutrition because the cancer spread throughout my lymphatic system. So I had tumors the size of golf balls. From the back of my neck, my head, all the way at the base of my skull, all the way around my neck, down into under my arms, in my chest, and all the way down to my abdomen.
Was it painful?
Oh, it was very uncomfortable because you could feel it all growing, and they were pressing against my lungs and my heart and all my organs.
Oh my gosh.
It was so painful, and I had trouble breathing, and my lungs would fill up with fluid, which had to be drained every 3 weeks. My body stopped absorbing nutrition, so I started to lose weight. And because I wasn't absorbing nutrition, my muscles started to deteriorate. They started to atrophy. And this took time, like about 3 years, 10 months. And so by the end of that period, I was lying in bed. I couldn't walk. I couldn't eat. I was being fed through a food tube because I just couldn't keep my food down. Because my lungs were filled with fluid, I would choke when I would lie down. And my wonderful husband was by my side all the time. He never left my side. But you know how I said I was such a people pleaser? And people say that, oh yeah, getting the cancer taught you that you have to take care of yourself. Here's the thing. It wasn't the cancer that healed me from being a people pleaser. It was death. Because even as the cancer progressed, I was still the people pleaser all the way to the end. And on February 2nd of 2006, I didn't open my eyes. I had these open skin lesions where toxins were weeping from my skin. And as I said, I had all these tumors and I could barely breathe. I know.
It really makes me tear up when I'm thinking about you having to go through this.
Oh, it was. I feel like it was a lifetime ago. Yeah. I was such a different person, and then I went into a coma, and I was in the hospital, and Danny, of course, was distraught, and my mom was there, and she was distraught. When I went into the coma, that was when I felt I left my body, because all of a sudden I was no longer in this body, and my body was frail. It weighed like 80 pounds, 85 pounds, but I was free. I was free from the body, and I felt incredible. I felt light.
Did you know that you had left your body at this time?
Were you seeing anything at this time?
So I was already aware of my family around me, but I wasn't quite understanding what was going on yet. I was not accustomed to being outside of my body.
Right. You just felt better all of a sudden.
All of a sudden, I felt, yes, so much better. I felt really light and free, and all the pain was gone. And all the fear was gone, because apart from being, of course, a people pleaser and fearing displeasing other people and not wanting to trouble anyone, I really feared the cancer that was ravaging my body. And I feared the treatments, and I feared death. I feared all of it. And I was in pain because my breathing was really labored. I was struggling to even catch a breath. And now here I was out of my body, and I was feeling amazing. And I didn't quite know what was going on, but I felt better than I ever remember feeling before. And then I saw that my family were around me, and they were distraught. And I saw my mom talking to the doctor saying, "Isn't there anything you can do for her?" And she was distraught. And I wanted to communicate with them. I wanted to tell them that I'm fine. Don't worry. I feel amazing. The pain is gone. The fear is gone. But I realized I couldn't. I didn't have a body. And that's when I started to become aware that, oh, I'm not in my physical body anymore. And I started to become aware that my physical body was lying on that hospital bed. And it looked so small and weak and frail, because now I could see it for what it was. And I couldn't believe that was me, because now I felt incredible and powerful. I was just kind of taking it in and aware that my family had the doctors out there, and they were talking to the doctors and the nurses. I felt like I could feel everything that they were feeling. I could feel their emotions.
Whoa.
Yeah, as if there was no separation between them and me. And I could feel the emotions of the doctors and the nurses who were taking care of me. And also their resolution that this is it. There's nothing more they can do. And that's what they were telling my family. And then there was a doctor that I saw. Apparently he was not even in the room. He was outside in the hallway. But I saw the doctor telling Danny that these are my final hours, that she probably won't even make it through the night. And so I could feel their pain, but then it was like I was also expanding or being pulled away. And I started to become aware of another reality or another world beyond this one, where I felt like I was surrounded by my loved ones that had crossed over before me. And that felt incredible. Now, my dad had died 10 years prior. My dad, the very dad that was disappointed that I was a girl and that instilled those values in me that made me so fearful. And here was my dad to greet me on the other side.
Whoa.
Your dad came forward?
Yeah.
Was he the first person to come forth?
He was the first person. All I felt from him was pure, unconditional love. Just pure love. I expected judgment for running away from the marriage, but all I felt was love. And he wasn't, of course, he wasn't in a physical body, but it was almost like, it's like his spirit and my spirit, or his soul and my soul. It's like they give you the image of who they are, so you know right away who it is, but also the energy, the feeling, and you don't talk with words because you have no vocal cords, you have no biology, you have no body. It's not words. It's like two souls just merging, and I knew everything he wanted me to know in an instant. You don't have to wait for someone to complete their conversation or their sentence. I knew that he loved me unconditionally, and I knew that he never meant to hurt me in life. And I started to understand that just like I felt I had been a victim of my culture, he was a victim of the culture. And he believed that he was doing the best he could for his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes.
Do you think that fear plays a role in getting sick?
I do. So there are certain fears that are good fears where it just gets you to take action when you're in danger. Mm-hmm. But when you are in a life, and I'm going to say that a lot of people feel this way because of the way our mainstream media and social media works. When you are in this constant state of fear, where it literally is the background of your life, then it is extremely unhealthy. And I'm going to go into that a little bit more. But it's that constant, and what that does is that it makes you lose yourself. And every choice you make in life then comes from a place of fear as opposed to from a place of love. So what that means is when you make a choice, are you making the choice from a place of fear of disapproval, fear of being shamed, fear of being disliked? Or are you making this choice because you want to do this, you love to do this, you desire to do this? Are you making this choice because you're afraid that you don't have enough money and you're not going to make enough money, like you take this job that you hate for the money because you're afraid a better one won't come along? Or are you taking this job because it feeds your passion? It's part of your calling. So are we making our choices from a place of fear? And if every day we're choosing because of fear, or are we eating foods out of fear that these foods are going to harm us, and so I need to eat these foods? And so even the healthy foods, are we eating them out of fear or out of a love for our body and a love for our life and a desire to live long? A lot of people eat very healthy, but from a place of fear.
Yeah, wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And when you came back into your body, did you have a full understanding of like all of this information?
Did anything else happen also? I want to know if anything else happened while you were on the other side before you came back. After your dad, did you see more?
Yes, I saw a lot of my loved ones. I didn't recognize all of them from this life, so they could have been just been guides, or they could have been people from other lives I've had.
Did they tell you anything?
They all wanted me to know that it wasn't my time, that I had a purpose and I needed to go back.
Did they tell you what your purpose was and the work you had to do?
So this was interesting. I was shown a vision of me speaking to thousands of people, but I had no idea what I was speaking about. And for me, the vision was very real on the one hand. It was like, this is your future. You have to go back, because not only will you be missing out on this future, but basically they wanted me to know that I would be helping out a lot of people and that Danny's and my future was linked. And if I didn't go back, he wouldn't be able to fulfill his future either.
Oh, did they give you an option to not go back?
They did. They weren't forcing me. They said, you don't have to go back, but this is the time now to make that choice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I was in the coma for about 30 hours, and it was like, this is the time now to make that choice, but it is not your time to die. My feeling was that, why would I go back? My body is sick and dying, and my family is suffering. I'm suffering. And then I felt like I got this state of clarity where I could literally understand why I had got sick. It was almost like I was seeing a vision of the whole thing reverse engineering, where I could see how every thought and decision and choice I had made in my life had led to this point of me lying there in this hospital bed dying. And where I was right now, over here on this side, I felt so incredibly powerful and strong and free and magical. And it was such a state of clarity where I understood that if I now chose to go back, knowing who I truly am and knowing why I got sick, that my body would heal. And I was shown this vision, as I said, of me speaking to thousands of people, but I had no idea what I was speaking about. And I was almost, if we can apply words to that state I was in on the other side, because it's not like you're speaking, it's not like there's language, but it was like I was almost incredulous when I saw the image of my future, because I thought, that's not me. I'm not a public speaker. I was someone who was shy and repressed and, had been socialized for an arranged marriage and a people pleaser. I don't see me speaking to thousands of people. Wow. And so I wanted to know, but how does someone like me get from here, from lying in a hospital bed to there? And the message I was given, particularly from my dad, was that you don't have to do anything. Just go back and live your life fearlessly, meaning be yourself fearlessly. That's all.
Full body chills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened when you came back?
So as soon as I made the decision that I was going to come back, that yes, okay, I have work to do. I have to come back. And when I realized I don't have to figure it out, I just have to be myself. That's all. And fearlessly. I started to realize that during my lifetime, it was my dad who instilled fear in me. But in death, it was my dad who set me free from that fear.
Wow, poetic.
Oh my God, that's so beautiful.
So when you came back, how were you able to recover? And was it the lessons that you were able to implement that you feel like helps you recover? Or do you feel like, there's a lot of testimonies pointing towards just encounters with the divine can have profound healing effects. So was it the changes you implemented or the encounter with divinity?
It was the encounter with divinity. It was the encounter of being in that. To me, like people say, did you see God? My response to that is God is not a being, it's a state of being.
Yeah. Yeah. And
when you encounter that state of being, there's no room for illness in your body if you choose to come back into the body.
We talk about this a lot. Isn't it interesting how we sort of have these stories, these narratives for ourselves, the stories we tell ourselves of who we are and what we are. And a lot of times disease can kind of get trapped in that story. But when you have a non-corporeal experience, if you merge with spirit,
yes,
that different state of consciousness, it's almost like everything just melts away and then the story goes with it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It feels like you said, it feels like a different life, it's weird.
It is weird. And it feels like the person I was before, it feels like a different person. And it was a lifetime ago. I don't relate to that person anymore because when I made that choice to come back, I realized that now that I knew that all of us are powerful, all of us can touch the state of divinity and realize who we truly are. But when we know that and we live that, our lives are so different. And I realized that we're supposed to be that over here, but we forget. And so I started to come out of the coma after I'd been in the coma for a little over 30 hours. And I started to just speak to my family. My family were around me and they were shocked I was opening my eyes, but I was still connected to all the tubes, and I had food tubes and heart rate monitor and oxygen tube and all these tubes. And I started to say, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. Dad is here. Dad is here. And so they were wondering what was going on. They thought the drugs were messing with my head or
right.
I thought they were supposed to be spiritual.
But they were so happy and elated, and they called the doctor to come in. So he was a doctor that only started treating me after I went into the coma because he was the one that was on duty. And so I called him by his name. I said, "Hi, Dr. Chan." And he said, "How do you know my name?" And I said, "Oh, didn't you come and drain fluid out of my lungs because my lungs had become filled with fluid?" And he said, "Yes, but you were in a coma. You couldn't have known this."
Wow.
He tried to dismiss it. And then he said to my family, "She's still in a critical condition," basically trying to tell them, don't raise your hopes. And when he left the room, I said to Danny, I said, "Why was he so surprised that I could hear him? Isn't he the doctor that told you that I won't even make it through the night?" And Danny said, but he said that to me outside the room. There's no way you could have heard it.
You're like, because I was floating around. That's why. He's like, what are you talking about?
Yes.
You said something really profound, which was in that state of consciousness, coming back into your body, you realized that the state of consciousness you experienced in the quote unquote afterlife is the state of consciousness we are supposed to be experiencing on Earth.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because that implies you just described a non-corporeal state where everyone's having almost this empathic transmission where we're even post language and we're one with like divinity or whatever you want to call it, spirit. So can you explain that a little bit of because that is some serious stuff, because if that's true, you just set forth the evolutionary potential of humanity. So you feel this way? You think
100%.
What happened to us? Why are we like this? Why are we so disconnected?
So I'm going to say it's a lot of it is conditioning. I think there's so many reasons. And I think we just took a wrong turn somewhere. Somebody felt that the most important thing was to exploit people, I guess, and do what profits. And then everything, and so it really is like the strongest, the loudest voices among us are the ones that took hold. So here's what I've noticed. So we're jumping a little bit, but what I've noticed with the world when I look from this, I call it view from the other side. I tend to look at the world from a different perspective. So we are so polarized. We're fighting between left and right. And, we've been polarized now for years. What I wish people would realize is that when you die, none of that matters. None of that matters. Nobody cares on the other side whether you voted left or you voted right. What matters, what really matters, is how much did you love? How much did you experience? How much did you allow yourself to be loved? How much did you laugh? Did you follow your passion? Did you live fearlessly? Those are the things that matter. And if we can live from that space, that's what I mean by living from that space of consciousness. If people were aware of who they truly are and could actually, you see, the English language limits us, so I'm going to use whatever language I can grasp. But if people can live from that frequency, you would have less illnesses. You would fear less because you would have your own connection. So I'm going to use an analogy because language is so limited.
Yeah.
I don't know how we went wrong or who taught us to go wrong, but I'm going to ask you to play along with me and use your imagination. We were all born connected. We're all spirit. We were born connected. We all have this guidance. We all have access to consciousness. And if we led from consciousness, our lives would be much better. But instead, we're leading from the physical, and not just from the physical, we're leading from fear. And fear is what separates us. So if you indulge me, imagine if shortly after you were born, maybe when you're 1 or 2 years old, just imagine if your parents started to train you or teach you and tell you, don't ever open your eyes. Keep your eyes closed, because what you see with your eyes will deceive you and it will throw you off from reality. So I know this is far-fetched, but just play along. And your parents tell you that. Every single person's parents tell this to their children, and all these children grow up going through life with their eyes closed. And all their parents have their eyes closed. They've had their eyes closed their whole life. And then you have a kid who maybe opens their eyes and says, there's something more. There's something, I feel something that's not what you're saying. I'm different. And the parents tell them, no, keep your eyes closed. I told you, or you won't fit in. Now, imagine if everybody has their eyes closed, and so you live in a world where everybody's eyes are closed. You are then creating a physical world that is for people who are blind, by people who are blind.
Yeah.
And so that kind of world, you won't have things like art, you won't have colors, you won't have language for colors, you won't know what the sky is. There's so many things you won't have. You won't have fashion, you won't have makeup. There would be so many things you wouldn't have. We would dress for practicality. The way we build our homes, our architecture would be designed for ease of navigating, and all our technology would be designed to compensate for our lack of sight. Now, I'm going to tell you that you were actually born as a multisensory being, not a five-sensory being, but you were discouraged from using it. From the time you were a child, you were made to feel abnormal and different for using it. And because of that, you've always repressed it. And so now we try to develop technology to compensate for it. We believe that we are five sensory beings, and people who show that there is more or who talk about something more, they're made to feel crazy, and they're the ones that are considered dumb and stupid and alienated. And we do not have language to describe that something more. Just like if you had a world of blind people, there would be no language for colors and fashion and all these things. So does that make sense to you so far?
And it's fascinating because right, that we asked, well, what happened? Why are we like this if we're supposed to be like that? And you just set forth this beautiful analogy around cultural programming and cultural conditioning, which is after hearing your story, that is obviously a major theme of your life, is the cultural program.
Yes.
But if that's so, and we agree with you, that implies that shattering cultural conditioning is essential to the liberation of human consciousness.
Oh, yes.
And the suffering of this planet. But shattering cultural conditioning looks crazy. You know, what's the thing we always say? In a sick world, truth will always sound like insanity, right?
Yes.
So, all right. Well, how do people break the cultural conditioning? I mean, which you've done. You ran away. You did it. How do you break the cultural conditioning while living in love? I guess it's just the better question.
So, the first thing is to start with yourself and allow yourself to be different, and don't judge yourself for it. Don't judge yourself by other people's barometers of what is right, what is wrong, and just start with yourself. And when you are doing it from a place of consciousness, you're doing it with love. You're not harming other people. For me, my highest value is always love and kindness. So I will be myself, but I will never be mean or nasty or rude or harm someone as far as I can. But so it starts with allowing yourself to be who you are. It starts also with self-discovery. Who am I? What do I want? What do I represent in this world? What are my passions? What brings me joy? What do I love to do? If I could be anyone I want, doing anything I want, what would that look like? Even if we're not doing it, even if it's not practical right now to be that and do that, you need to know what that is. And you need to know how far away you are from that in what you're doing, and how far away from the truth of who you really are that you are right now. And I want to say one other thing to the example I gave you about the sensory, about us being multisensory. We really are multisensory because, when babies are born, they are so intuitive. They know when their mother comes into the room versus a stranger. And if you've got pets, which I know you guys do, if you've had dogs, you know that dogs know you're coming home. Like, even if you're nowhere near your home, they go stand by the door.
Yeah, they've proven that.
Yeah, they've proven
like 5 miles away.
So,
they'll know.
Yes.
Even plants.
Yeah,
yes.
plants too.
So why is it that we can accept it for pets and animals and plants? And there's so many things they've proven of animals knowing when a tsunami is coming, and so they go to higher ground. They know it long before humans do. But if we had never repressed our intuition from the time we were babies, we would know, we would have it. It would have been natural, and we would have developed a language for it.
Yeah, and animals are such incredible teachers for us because they are in such a natural state. They're in complete flow with everything, including consciousness and spirit and all of that stuff. I mean, if you look at like yoga, the positions in yoga are based off of animals moving energy through their bodies. Everything that we alchemize is through looking at animals and the way that they do things and being like, oh, I should probably do that myself because we've been socialized.
I feel like we gaslight ourselves. I feel like it's like deny our intuition. Oh, I'm crazy.
For sure.
For sure.
It's weird when we do that to ourselves.
And going back to what you were asking, so in terms of consciousness, the fact that I was able to feel what everyone else is feeling, I realized that we're all connected. We're all part of this one consciousness. And when you understand that you have access to this, which is what we're supposed to be living here, you have access to this one consciousness, which we are all facets of, then you realize that I have access to all this power, but so does everybody else. And we're all connected. So there's no part of you that would even want to harm someone else. And so, what you were saying about how do you bring this out into the world, or how do you change the world? It starts with changing yourself. Since we are all connected, everybody's energy is contributing to this consciousness. Right now, more of us are contributing fear energy. Very few of us are contributing love energy. The ones who are aware that we are connected are contributing love energy. And what I tell people is that you might be doing a lot of what you believe is good in the world, but you might be doing it out of fear, out of anger. And that's the energy you're putting into the world. Yeah. The idea is, don't try to convert anybody to your way of thinking. Just be it yourself. Just like Gandhi said, be the change you want to see.
Yeah.
And that's really all we need to do. And each person needs to wake up for themselves and not try to convert other people. Because when you try to convince and convert other people, or when you try to change the world, then you're met with frustration, and you start to get frustrated and angry. And then that's what you're kind of bringing with you.
Yeah, that is a reason why, we don't like watching the news, is because it's fear-based. Everything, we've talked about this, but it started in the 80s with, if it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah.
And so they're constantly pumping us with fear in order to keep us watching, right?
Yes.
I need to see what happens next. I need to see what happens next. But then we're constantly carrying this fear around with us, this anxiety around with us, and we can't do anything about it. So it's like, if you can't do anything about it, then go to what you do in your normal day and spread love to every single person that you meet. What you want to see in the world is exactly what you're saying. It's like, what can you do in your everyday? How can you be more loving to those around you? How can you be more loving to yourself?
Yes, exactly. And when we were touching on spirituality earlier, I was actually taught that there are certain things you have to do to be spiritual. You have to work at being spiritual, and you have to be in service to other people. And so I was taught to see God in everybody's eyes and to be of service to everyone. It was only when I died did I learn to see God in my own eyes, and did I realize that even I'm a facet of God.
And that also makes sense, because at the time, if you're thinking about only other people and you're never thinking about yourself, then you're never thinking of yourself as a piece of God as well.
Yes.
And this actually, you mentioned earlier that when you were on the other side, you felt powerful.
Very.
You felt everything. You're like, oh, I can interpret everybody's emotions. I just automatically know everybody's emotions, and you felt powerful. Is there a way for people to bring that into their everyday life and to start actually feeling that sort of true power?
There are ways. First, I would say we as a culture, I'm going to talk generally about most of the people out there getting on with life. If I use the terms energy equity and energy deficit, to be able to access that, you have to be at what I call an energy equity level, where your energy feels so big and so powerful that we feel invincible. And that's what it felt like when I left my body. But I realized that we can recreate it here. But by doing the things that we are currently conditioned to do, it takes us down to energy deficit. So in our case, I'm not saying specifically us, but I mean in the general culture, we have to, it's not about doing certain things, it's about undoing certain things.
Oh, interesting.
So it is about things like stop buying into all the popular beliefs, stop listening to all the news, stop buying into everybody else's fear. And then it's so you can at least stop taking on all that fear and that burden, which is depleting your energy and making you I guess, vibe on a lower frequency, for want of a better way of putting it. See, when I was on the other side, and even when I came back and I was watching my body heal, I didn't actually touch on this part. In 5 days, the tumors had shrunk by 70%.
5 days?
5 days. In 3 weeks, they could find no trace of cancer in my body.
Oh my gosh, that's wild.
Yeah, so,
wow.
And I was just building my strength and eating and getting stronger. And in 5 weeks, they let me go home from the hospital to live my life cancer-free.
What's the first thing you did when you got out of the hospital? Do you remember?
I ate chocolate ice cream.
You're like, off I go.
And it had to be Belgian chocolate ice cream.
Was it a certain brand?
And it was a certain brand.
Your favorite.
My favorite brand.
That's amazing.
It was very specific. And here's the important thing I want to say about the ice cream. Before I'd even been diagnosed with cancer, I used to be very, very health conscious. I used to eat only organic food. I used to be very careful about what I put in my mouth and what I put in my body, but I did it from a place of fear. And I used to take a lot of supplements, a lot of antioxidant, anti-cancer supplements, because I saw 2 people go through cancer and not do well.
Oh, so this was before your diagnosis?
Yes, and then even during my diagnosis, I continued with that. But before my diagnosis, I had this fear of cancer, and I had this focus on, I am going to make myself so healthy because I don't want cancer. So I was so fearful of cancer that everything I ate was because I feared getting sick. Everything I did was because I feared getting sick. And I actually saw things like, I would view things like ice cream and things like that as poison, as toxic. And I would read up a lot, I would research a lot on anti-cancer diets. And I remember going to see a lecture by somebody who was a naturopath. And this is not, not attacking any naturopaths. It just happens to be this person who was the speaker. I still do see naturopaths, but this particular person was actually talking about all the things in our environment that cause cancer. And he was talking about everything from plastics, microwaves, the chemicals in our water, and literally everything. And I was shocked at the end of it. I was so fearful. And he ends it with, "Are you afraid?" He says this to the audience. He goes, "Are you afraid?" And everybody's nodding. And I was very afraid. And he goes, "Well, you should be. That's the condition of our planet right now."
That's how he ended his...
That's how he ended his speech.
Oh my gosh.
And then, of course, he has all this stuff that he's selling. All this anti-cancer stuff he's selling in the back of the room.
Of course.
Exit at the gift shop.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And so as I'm watching 2 friends go through cancer and not doing well, and I am hearing 1 in 3 people will get cancer, everything around your environment is going to cause cancer, I started to become paranoid about everything I would put in my body.
This is this is something we bring up like on every episode. So I don't know if you've noticed in this community, there is a sort of, I think, realizing that this world is an illusion and there's the real life or the real existence is on the other side of this.
Yes.
And also all the corruption in the world and everything you just set forth with environmental toxins and, chemicals in our food that can cause disease. I think everyone's so traumatized.
Yes.
Like, we're so surprised that so many people we sit down with who are health experts, they just go right into the conspiracy of everything. And I don't even want to call it a conspiracy. It's more like the dark history of destroying our environment, food and medicine. But, it's so dark and we're always like, well, but if we're directing people's awareness towards the negative, it's going to amplify the negative.
Exactly.
And isn't that like the whole thing? Like, we have
what's the positive?
We have an attention problem. Like, where your mind goes, your energy flows. Like, how do we focus just on the good, the love, what we have, and then that amplifies. Like, how do we, because you're saying it's more what we don't do, what we abstain from is the main thing to abstain from is, I guess, negativity or fear.
Sometimes it's even hard to do that. But yes, I mean, don't feed yourself the fear. But I will give you a formula, which I use and how I live my day. And I'm going to give you that formula for your listeners. Usually I do this in my workshops and we take half a day over it, but your listeners can run with it themselves. So first of all, I wanted to mention that why I said this when you touched on the chocolate ice cream. I hadn't had chocolate ice cream, my favorite chocolate ice cream, for years because I was afraid of it.
Oh.
I was afraid to have all my favorite foods. And that's why when I came out of the near-death experience, I wasn't given an all clear of my health. I came out of the near-death experience and I realized it wasn't the cancer that killed me. It was the fear. Wow. That was the big thing I learned. It wasn't the cancer. I learned the cancer was trying to save my life. But it was the fear that killed me.
Wow.
And that's why I said the first thing I want to eat when I got my appetite back, the first thing I wanted to eat was this Belgian chocolate ice cream.
So what is the thing that you walk through during your conferences?
So here's how I look at it. It's what we value and it's what our priorities are in life. Now, if we want to touch this state of consciousness, this great grand state of consciousness, we have to expand our own energy state. And we can expand it in many ways. It's different for each person. I mean, for some people, going out and being an activist might be what you want to do. You want to change the world that way. Go for it. For some people, that's the worst thing for them. So you don't do it. So now I want you to imagine that we could measure your energy state. And I do this all the time. I imagine that my energy state is a currency. And I'm going to say that a good night's sleep and waking up in the morning refreshed and feeling like I had enough sleep gives me 12 units of energy. Okay?
That's so cool. Okay.
Yes. So you've got 12 units of energy now to play with. What do you do with those units of energy? Now, I want you to imagine, first thing you do in the morning, you get up, you turn on the news, and you watch all this stuff that's going on, and immediately your energy starts to drop. You're down to like 8 units of energy. You grab a breakfast because it's convenient, not because you want to eat it, not because it's healthy, but just because it's convenient. But it's not doing you a lot of good, not your body, not you. And so you've lost another unit or 2 of energy digesting that. So now you're down to like 6 units of energy. You didn't even enjoy it. Like if you enjoyed it, it would have lifted your energy up a bit, but you didn't even enjoy it. You're now down to 6 units of energy. You got to go to work. You're stuck in traffic. You lose another 2 units of energy being in traffic. You're down to 4 units of energy. You go to a job you don't even like, and you don't like your boss, and your boss is a bit of a bully, and you come home. You've lost 4 units of energy at work, and you come home at 0, and you're tired, and you're depleted. And let's say you're not in a good relationship. And so you lose another couple of units of energy, and you're kind of making your own dinner, you're eating alone, you're at -2 or 3. You go to bed and you don't sleep well because you've had a bad day. So instead of getting 12 units of energy, you wake up and you only had 8, but then you minus the 3 that you went to sleep with, -3, you're waking up with only 5 units of energy. And now you have to go through the day doing the same thing all over again with only 5 units. So every day you're building up energy deficit. Our world, for some reason, we seem to have fallen into a pattern where more people are doing this than not. And even just by watching the news, even going to a job they hate and living a life out of fear. Now, I want you to think of the opposite scenario. Imagine getting your 12 units of energy, and imagine actually eating a breakfast that you enjoy eating, which you also know will be good for your body. And you feel good while eating it. So with your 12 units, you've added another 2. That's 14. Now imagine if you have a job you love. Now, I know not everybody is there yet, so we're going to talk about how to bridge these two worlds, but let me just give you this scenario. You go to a job that you love. Like, I love what I do. I will not take on a job, a task, a project that doesn't excite me. So you go to a job you love, doing what you love to do. You meet wonderful people. You gain maybe 4, maybe 6 more units of energy. So you come home and you're at 20. At 20 units of energy, you're revved up. You can make a nice dinner. Maybe you have a nice relationship. Maybe you play with your pets, and you go to bed at 22 units of energy, and you wake up with another 12. And so you're in energy equity. Now, what happens when you have energy equity is that, let's say you have to deal with an issue. Let's say a friend is sick and they need your help. Let's say you have an aging parent. Let's say you have a special needs child. You have the energy equity to deal with those things. You have the energy equity to eat an unhealthy chocolate ice cream because it makes you happy and that makes up for it. But you also know to eat healthy foods because you value and love your body. And you keep building up energy equity. The more energy equity you have, the more you start to touch that space, because the more you're contributing to the whole, the greater whole. Those who are in energy deficit, where is that energy coming from? It's coming from this same source that we are either contributing or we're drawing from it. And so when we talk about healthy food, it's wonderful to have healthy food that fuels your body, but are you doing it from a place of fear or love? If you have both love and the healthy food, amazing. But if there's certain foods you love, like chocolate ice cream of a particular brand, go for it, because you've got the equity. You've got the equity.
Well said. So you had this experience of transcendence with your NDE. Have you ever been able to achieve that state of consciousness again, or come into communion with spirit or your ancestors ever again? And, if so, how so? And like, what modality did you use?
So I try to attain that regularly. It's probably not to the extent that it was at that time.
Yeah.
But I still feel that connection. So the way I describe it is that it's as if I live in two worlds, and I invite other people to do that.
Planeswalker. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think the best way to live your life is to realize that you need to live in both worlds. Because we do need to be here physically. We need to pay our bills. We need to buy groceries. We need to eat.
We came to be a human.
Yeah,
and we came to be a human. And we came to play and to buy ugly monsters.
But isn't the truth that we are living in both worlds? That we are in that world? This is like you use the term frequency. Like, both worlds are overlapped at the same time. There's an interplay.
Yes.
I mean, right? Like, so almost the physical mechanism of the body is the thing that's keeping us from perceiving that, or the cultural program, right?
You're
just aware of both worlds, so you're able to live within both?
Yes. So I guess, and that's a really good point. A better way for me to say it is that most people don't realize we live in two worlds. So we're living in a world where most people think they are only a physical being, a 3-dimensional being, in a 5-sensory world. But when you become aware that you are a multidimensional being in a multisensory reality, your world changes. It's not the fact that we're in a physical body that's preventing us from experiencing that. It's the conditioning. That's the stronger element, the conditioning. And people find it really hard to break out of that socialization and the cultural conditioning. So if we can slowly allow ourselves to believe, like, first of all, one of the exercises I ask people to do is I tell them, what if you were highly intuitive and your intuition was extremely accurate? I want you to pretend for 24 hours, just go and pretend. And when you do that, you start opening up. And then when you do these exercises, like if you can, I do them in my workshops where I have people pair up who've never seen each other, and I have them tell each other about each other's lives. And it's incredible how accurate they are without realizing it. Yeah.
That's so wonderful.
Very cool.
You're teaching people that they already have this ability inside of them, which is so cool,
Yes.
Anita.
Yeah, that's amazing.
They really already, we all have it, but we don't trust it. And we've been conditioned not to believe it and to tell ourselves this is silly. What I tell people is that if you continue to dismiss it and believe you don't have it and think it's rubbish, then you're not going to experience it. You're not going to sense it. But the more you open up to it, and allow yourself to make mistakes and allow yourself to be wrong, you will slowly become more and more accurate. But the less open you are to it, the more afraid you are of being wrong, the more you'll be proven right that, yeah, you're wrong.
Right. Yeah. So me and Tanya, when we first started dating, she's so intuitive. I mean, humans were all intuitive, but women are very intuitive. Tanya is extremely intuitive. And so we'd have to start to create like devices or games that we would play to keep us listening to the intuition. So our mantra became first thought, best thought, first thought, best thought, to get us to listen to the intuition. So, you know,
it literally started going to a park and we're like, which tree should we sit under? We were like,
first thought,
this one. And they were like, well, maybe there's a better one. It was like first thought, best thought. And we came back and there were people sitting there. And we were like,
so we said after that,
was the
everything's
best
first
tree.
thought, best thought. So
I love that.
Being a young woman that was essentially programmed, you know, to have your spark taken from you. You're here to serve men. That's your value. This is your, you know, how has your journey changed in terms of how the next generation of women that are going to come into the world? Like, what is your message or your vision for how to essentially make sure that that doesn't happen to the next generation of women so they can come into their power and, you know, be who you are now, but not have to go through all the bullshit you had to go through to get here. You know what I mean?
Yes, I love that, because I always say this, that the reason I share my story, it's not because I want to make it about me, but it's because I truly believe that if I knew then what I know now, I never would have needed to suffer. And so I want people to know this for that reason, so they don't suffer. And I would want people of every culture, every race, every religion, every gender to know that that is not who you are. You are someone that is far more powerful. And it really doesn't matter what gender you are. And it doesn't matter your gender, your race, your religion. None of it matters. Even your religion doesn't matter when you cross over. None of it matters. It's just who you are inside, who your soul is. We say inside, but it's actually bigger than you. It's outside, it's inside, it's everywhere. Your soul is so powerful and limitless, and it overlaps with everyone else's. And when you actually expand, when you become aware of it and you expand and you start to even slowly build up your energy equity, the more you build it up, the more you feel it. You feel the expansion. The more you do that, you realize that you can help the world just by being in it. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to be an activist. You don't have to say anything. Just by being in it, you're being a light. You're uplifting the world.
So being someone who grew up in a religious household and then died and experienced the other side. I mean, you just said there's no religion in the spirit world. Yeah. So that kind of answers this question. But what do you think this is? You've been to the other side. You came back. What's life? Why are we here? What the fuck is going on here? What's the point? What is all this? Like, do you have an idea, greater idea after your experiences?
So I have some ideas, but I don't have like the ultimate answer. I mean, usually when people ask me, why are we here? I say to eat chocolate. Why else?
Touche.
I mean, that's true though, to experience the three-dimensional world as humans and have the experience.
Mm-hmm. And I feel that in addition to having the experience, and of course, in addition to eating the chocolate, I think that we, in some way, our intention is to evolve the species, or it's more than the species. So coming at it from the mindset of the soul, it's like even as souls, we want to evolve. And this is the best place to do that. That's what it feels like to me.
This place is hard.
It's very hard. It's very hard. So I will share with you that when I came back from the other side, I thought I had all the answers. I really thought I was, I was so naive.
But also, how could you not?
I know.
Think that.
Yeah.
I was euphoric. I was literally euphoric, and my body was healing so fast. I thought, wow, everyone's going to want to know what I experienced. I had all the answers for me. I really wanted to share it with everyone. But I didn't realize people would be so resistant. That's what it is.
Hearing this every time we watch NDE
people who
stories,
die, they come back.
They always say like, people.
We've heard people be institutionalized.
People have been
medicated.
institutionalized. Yeah.
Yes.
So what happened when you came back? So you have this. Thank God you healed with this, because then you could say, you're like, look, well, if
look at the charts.
Yeah, I have some evidence here. Yeah,
exactly. So people cannot dispute that it healed. Here's where they come at me. They're like, yes, you had a spontaneous healing, and science and maybe medicine doesn't understand it yet, but we're still researching and we'll figure it out one day. And I'm like, yes, but what if drugs and pharmaceuticals isn't the direction that the research should be going? Maybe the research should be in understanding where consciousness plays a part in it. That's when I get shut down.
Oh, yeah.
That's where it's like they don't want to know. And I said, but doesn't anyone want to know what went on internally for me when I understood how all the thoughts and decisions contributed to me getting sick? And I came back because it was like I came back to a clean slate. I understood, and I knew that I didn't have to bring that conditioning back with me. But that's where they draw the line, that's all woo-woo. I was even told I was delusional. And they said, I said, look, I even think that if research could just put some funds in this direction, and I would get sarcastic responses from people like, yeah, right. So you want to tell them to love themselves and have these experiences,
but it has to be holistic. It has to be.
Yeah, but cancer is like the hardest one, because it's so crazy. If you try to talk about this, people get so triggered.
Yes.
I don't know why we don't listen more to people like you, or at least the science and the doctors don't. Because you obviously know something, you've been through the experience.
Yes. And thankfully today there are a few people who are more interested, who are talking to me, who want to set up a study. And I have oncologists who tell me that they give all their patients my books, which is very heartening. But at that time, when I came out of the experience and I started wanting to talk about it, nobody wanted to hear, or very few people. I mean, I was being shut down because I was and I had one person, a medic person, said, how long ago did you heal? And at this point I said, 3 years ago, and I'm still cancer free. And they go, well, the remission time is 5 years, so you shouldn't be talking about it until after it can come back. Basically, it can come back. Get
out of here.
I know. And there was someone else that said, are you sure you weren't misdiagnosed? And I said, I had 5 doctors treating me over a period of 4 years.
You're like, I died. I was in a coma. I died. What are you talking about?
Hospital records.
But this is coming full circle, though, because we're talking about like, well, why don't we listen to our intuition? The gaslighting we do to ourselves, we do it to each other.
Yeah.
We do each other. Talk about like judging ourselves. We judge each other. Like, like it is, so it starts by listening to ourselves. It's also listening to each other, listening to people's personal experiences.
I think we judge each other, though, because we judge ourselves.
Yeah.
So we assume everybody's judging us, so then we're judging other people. It's a terrible cycle.
It's a trap.
Yes, it is. It's a trap. Yes.
Yeah, it's a trap. It's a trap we're all stuck in.
Also, something that I'm like realizing after hearing you talk about all this stuff is that when it comes to like manifestation, right? When people talk about manifestation, really we are manifesting all the time, good or bad, positive or negative. It's like what we're thinking we are bringing to us. If it's a negative thing, if it's like, I don't want to get cancer, you're still calling in that thing.
Yes.
So it's very interesting. It's one of those things of like really training ourselves to stop doing that and not allowing the fear in.
Exactly. So the thing to check in with is when you say, I don't want to get cancer, what you're actually doing, the action you're taking right now is not because you want to do that action, but you're doing it because you're fearing the cancer. So the question to ask yourself is, am I doing this out of love or fear? And that's how I would weigh every action and decision I'm making, love or fear. And when you do things out of love, they're giving you energy equity. And yes, and energy equity is really like, we have toxins in the environment, and there's no excuse for that for people who profit from poisoning people. So I'm not making any excuses for them. But what I do want to say is that when we all realize that our energy is the best equity that we can have over money or anything, even as an individual, we're not going to try and change the world. We're going to try and change ourselves as an individual. When you build up your energy equity, you are better equipped to handle the stuff that you can't control. You're better equipped to handle the toxins or the radiation and everything else, and the colds and the flus and the COVID and whatever else is going on.
I love the way that you said that, because it's actually making me think now of like my daily life. Like I definitely want to go through and be like, oh, well, this would add, this would subtract.
I was
it's so
doing
cool.
that as she was walking through I was like, okay, am I doing it? Yeah. So we're professional screenwriters, and there is obviously stories mimic the mythology and the archetype of the human experience, right? And one of the fundamental sort of like structures of storytelling, it's Campbellian, is this this idea of the cave of fears. The idea is that for the hero who has to go through their cave of fears. And the saying is, in the cave of fears lies the treasure they seek. And this tends to be around like right before the second act climax. And what happens is that this character faces their fear, and they actually are killed by it. They die. And in that death, they are resurrected and reborn, and they are changed on a fundamental level. And that's what births them into the third act of the story, where they can essentially, with that change, they can essentially really change the world and change and accomplish what they want to go in some shape or form. It's through facing the thing that they fear that they're able to liberate themselves, not from avoiding it and running away from it. And it's interesting. It's interesting. It's like it's like all some beautiful designed game.
I mean, we say that the things that we used to fear, like I was afraid of ghosts and all this sort of stuff, and now it's the thing I seek. As soon as I started going towards it, I was like, wait a second, this is so magical. There's so much going on here. Like, why was I fearing this? It is really interesting. It is a thing.
Yeah. We talk about that for having a kid too, because there's so much fear there, and we're like, well, when we're afraid of things, it usually leads to our new obsession. So.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? It's so interesting, because my biggest fear was getting cancer. And what happened? I got cancer. And now I don't fear it, because I feel I know the mechanism of it, and I want everybody to know it. I just want, but not everybody is ready to listen.
It set you free. I mean, you're setting other people free now, which is so beautiful.
Yeah, you're living your authenticity, which is, and sharing it.
As we start to close here, is there anything that you would like to give to our audience or talk to our audience about that you think is really important for them to know?
Yeah, your message for the world.
So I would want people to know that who they are is perfect. All they have to do is be their authentic self, and don't worry about being judged. And I just want to share a quick story. So as I was telling you, when I came back from the near-death experience, I wasn't received well by everybody. And I remember there was this one woman, a very strong woman in our community, a very prominent in my community and my group of friends. And when I would talk about what I experienced and now how I want to live now and what I learned and what caused the cancer, she actually said I was delusional. So anyway, I continued to live in this way. And I said, but that's okay, even if I'm delusional, it works for me. This is how I'm going to live my life. In other words, choosing from the place of love instead of fear. She said, you're not being realistic, it's delusional. So then 10 years on, let's say 10 years later, I've been discovered by Wayne Dyer. The image I saw of me speaking to thousands of people, it's actually happened. And up there traveling the world, speaking to people, and I'm doing what I'm doing, and I love what I'm doing, and I love the way my life is turning out. This same lady, she's still kind of in touch with me. She reaches out to me and she said, I want to talk to you. She said, you are living such an amazing life. You are teaching all these people. You're helping so many people who I can see are actually being helped by you. My life sucks. I really hate where I am. My health is failing. I don't know what to do. Why don't you help me? I'm one of your closer friends. And I had to bite my tongue to say, I guess you just have to be delusional.
You should have. You should have,
right?
Yeah, you should have.
You said it now.
I said it now.
That's amazing. And it's such an amazing story and such an amazing punchline to all this. We have a lot of friends. It's really, obviously gone through a similar journey of the fear of being public about so much of the stuff we're public with. And we have friends from childhood who, whether they listen to the show or we help bring them to medicine, whatever it is, and it heals them and changes their lives. And they'll say, like, they'll apologize, be like, I thought X, Y, Z. But, it's weird. We all kind of feel it anyways, but that's also part of being authentic, going, it doesn't matter. I don't care what other people think. I care what I think about myself, right?
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. That's the most important thing.
Anita, look, we love you, sister.
We love you so much. Thank you.
We're so happy that you're the work you're doing, and your story's so amazing. Your message is so amazing,
and you're such an amazing woman in whole. I just love you so much.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
Oh gosh, I love you guys so much.
Yeah,
I'm so happy that we're doing this and that we're together. Really, you guys are so authentic. I've really loved this conversation. I've just felt your energy all the way through.
Yeah, same. Sis. Yeah, and we have. The crazy thing is, you have so much to teach. You to tell your story, and there's so much more you have to teach. Even beyond your story. So if you ever want to come back and have anything to say, we have you always have a space here.
But that's also why, Anita, could you tell people the names of your books and also where to find you so they can find out more information?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I would love for people to, my books are Dying to Be Me, What If This Is Heaven? Oh, and What If This Is Heaven is about bringing that here.
Cool.
And the third book is Sensitive is the New Strong, which is for sensitive people and empaths. And I have 2 children's books, Scaredy Caterpillar and Love, A Story of Who You Truly Are.
Oh my God, so cute.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I should give you my children's books. I'll post them to you.
Oh, so cool.
And also my website is anitamoorjani.com. I have a membership platform that's AM Sanctuary, but also I would love for people to find me on YouTube. I have a lot of free videos. Would love for people to subscribe to my YouTube channel.
We'll make sure to link it down below.
Yeah, we'll put everything down below. And you're writing a new book right now, correct?
I am. I'm in the middle of writing a new book.
Do you have a title?
I do. I'll just say...
You don't have to share if it's not
okay.
ready.
No, but I will share with you that it is more about the afterlife and how understanding the afterlife can impact this life and make you more powerful in this life.
Beautiful. Oh, can't wait.
Love that. All right, Anita, we love you, sister.
We love
we'll let you
Anita.
go. Yeah, have an amazing, just everything. We're just excited to watch you on your journey. Keep doing
what you're doing. You want to close us out?
I'll close it out. All right, gang. This has been an amazing episode of the Ask for Squares podcast. Thank you, Anita. Please like, subscribe, rate, comment. We appreciate all your help. Be well.
And go check out Anita.
Yeah, check out Anita. Bye.